Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Coda Conversations. Today, we have Marcus Manderson. He's a composer, music producer. He's worked with companies such as Disney, Starz, the Smithsonian, as well as National Geographic. How you doing today, Marcus?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh man, we're definitely glad to have you on the show. So if you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, music producer, composer, Marcus the Fingaz. Grew up playing piano and organ in a church. I'm a Hammond organ artist, and I also work by day at National Geographic in the AVIT. Um, and grew up playing music. Studied music in school, and that led to uh, working on getting into sync during the pandemic, getting into sync and movie trailers. And that's sort of the current journey. But my life before the pandemic was church and work, and I was probably gonna play in church until the end of time. And then once the pandemic hit, uh, church went virtual, and
Nice,
I decided, I like staying home
nice.
with the family on the weekends and having time to create music instead of playing other people's music. So
For sure, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
That's awesome.
yep.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting. You do freelancing, but your main job right now is a supervisor for National Geographic.
Correct. It's audiovisual. I don't know what the title is. AV manager, I think. So I'm overseeing like conference room support and technology usage at Nat Geo, and that is in the. I live in Virginia, but that's in DC. There's the headquarters there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Doing a dual role, kind of like main job and then your passion on the side. Do you feel like you
Yeah, that's
like the
awesome.
you feel like you like the tech side just as much as the musical side?
Uh, I like music. So what actually got me to National Geographic was we had a studio when I started working there, so I was doing more music when I first started working there, and then that sort of delved more into the tech side of things. But music is definitely the um, sort of the driving force for me.
Sure. And when you went to Full Sail University, what did you study there?
So that I went for a master's program. That was entertainment business. I don't know if it's still called that, but it was a master's of science in entertainment business. And for those who don't know, Full Sail University is in my humble opinion, one of the top entertainment schools in the country, where a lot of graduates and alum are working on the biggest films, the biggest video games, the biggest albums. All kinds of things. You can go there to study graphic design. You can study music. You can study audio engineering. You can study filmmaking and things like that.
So you got options basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember in the '90s, Full Sail. That's where you went to learn like game development,
Mhm.
something like that. Yeah, what were the kind of passions that got you into music composition? Was it like video games, or was it the church? What exactly fostered your love for music?
It was the church. My mom had I have three sisters and a brother, and all of us took piano lessons. I'm the youngest, so my mom had me. I stuck with piano throughout, and uh, was learning from a guy at the church. And when I got to my older years in high school, the instructor I was learning from said he took me as far as he could take me. And if I wanted to go to school for music, I would have to get a more formal, like classical repertoire up. And this was like 11th grade I was in. So I only had like a year and a half to prepare music for like an audition to get into a music school. So I found a classical instructor who was like, I can't teach you everything you need to know, you know, but I can get you
Right.
what you need to know to get into a school. But once you're in there, you're going to have to like really catch up to some of the other students. So my first year in college, I was like hitting the practice rooms at like 5 a.m. trying to catch up, musically to the other students on the classical side of things.
So like, do they want you to, so-called hit the ground running, basically?
Not in well in college, yeah. It's almost like when you're going to school for music. A lot of those students have been studying that since they were like 5 or 6 or probably younger.
Yeah,
Especially if it's
right.
more performance or classical based. I grew up playing in the church, which was more like improv, playing by ear, not really focused on like
More
reading
feel,
notes.
more
Yeah,
feel based, right? In church.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a drum teacher and professional drummer, and I'm just all about feel. Feel to me, it's the groundwork for all music.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, how did you make the transition from university into finding your first job?
It was after I graduated. When I was in school, Pro Tools was like the big what's called DAW, digital audio workstation. It was a big software that producers and music creators use for like audio mixing. So I wanted to get certified in this program because it was like the top program at the time. And there is a studio in Rockville, Maryland, close to where I live, called the Omega Recording Studios School of Applied Recording Arts and Sciences, something like that. It has a long name. And they had Pro Tools certification. So it was the closest to where I lived that offered Pro Tools certification. I remember
Nice.
calling around trying to get certified. I was trying to look for a program where I can get certified in a weekend. And I called them
Right.
and they're like, yeah, we can get you certified in a weekend. And it turns out the program that they put me in, it's like it took a year to get certified. And I was like, this wasn't the
Oh,
weekend I
no.
was before. But it was cool. So I went there, and as a result of going there, the person who had my position at National Geographic actually went there. So they were looking for someone who went there to come in and step in and work and assist with the studio stuff there. So I think the Pro Tools certification sort of got me into the corporate side of things, but still working in audio and music and audio engineering.
So Pro Tools was kind of your jumping off point.
Yeah.
Now, what about, did you use Logic at all? I know that's a pretty popular DAW.
I use it now. So I used Pro Tools for about 12-ish years.
Yeah.
And then I moved over for a couple of years. I was doing only iPad-only productions. So you just use the iPad for making music. And then shifted over to Logic. I'm in Logic now.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Interesting. So like from then compared to now, is there any significant difference in being able to get that first job? Like, is somebody else wanting to break into the industry, would they have to approach it a little differently than you did?
I think so. I think now there's people who can, depending on the job you want. I've seen audio jobs where you can work virtually. If you're doing mixing or audio editing and things, where in the corporate world, like there's some corporations that allow that audio position to be virtual. Whereas before the pandemic, there wasn't such an emphasis on remote jobs and working virtually or working from home and things like that. And now a lot of these companies see that that's an option because they've seen how the world, was still functioning during the pandemic and things like that.
And I think, employers have realized, like, even though these people are working from home, they're actually still getting their work done. I think that was a surprise for a lot of employers.
Yeah.
So yeah, like prior to the show, we spoke a little bit about networking. You do a lot of in-person and online networking. Can you speak to us a little bit about your experiences network, being able to effectively network?
Yeah. So playing in church for those 20, actually, I almost played in church for almost 30 years.
Wow.
I didn't have a lot of free time because I was learning songs for the choirs, and then we had choir rehearsals, and then being in church, almost every Sunday. So I didn't really have a lot of time to network. When the pandemic hit, I started looking at some of these other organizations, doing a lot of virtual meetups and Zooms and conferences and things, and really started looking into these music conferences. So 2022, I went to NAMM in person. I did the virtual NAMM in 2021. They did a virtual version because of the pandemic. And in 2022, I went to NAMM in person. I kept hearing about NAMM. People were telling me I need to go like every year, and I just couldn't go because of church. And so I went to NAMM in 2022 for the first time in person. And I was there looking at all the gear and stuff, but also they have workshops and panels and things. So I went to some of those, and I was like, I can, be up on stage and talk about things. So I had offered NAMM a couple ideas. They really liked the sync idea I had. I didn't tell them this, but my plan was to have my plan was to have African-American men on stage only talking about sync. And so I reached out to 6 or 7 guys to be on stage last year, 2023. And they all said yes. I thought maybe 2 or 3 of them would say yes, but they all said yes. And
they all said yes.
And that sort of ushered in a paradigm shift in the sync space, where there's been an emphasis on shedding a light on minorities and sync licensing and things like that. But that
That's interesting.
has been sort of emphasis. And then, of course, I did NAMM last year, worked with AES last year, Audio Engineering Society. They have a conference. They have a couple conferences a year. And then did NAMM again this year, where last year I had one panel, brought out 750 people, but the room they put us in could only seat like 100 people. I think we got like 150 in there. But
wow.
there were a lot of people who were upset because they couldn't get in that room. So this year they gave me a bigger room. I had 3 panels, had 2,000 people register, but even the final panel that I had was still in a smaller room and they couldn't let everyone in there. So hopefully there'll be more of that next year, and then working with AES and then some other conferences in the works. I've done some like sync conferences also, online, virtually, and in person throughout the year. I actually might be doing another one. I'm doing a virtual one next month from today, at the time of this, live, and then I might be doing 1 or 2 by the end of the year, 2 more.
That's awesome, man. What do you think? What are your thoughts on AI and how it's going to affect composition and music composers going forward?
Yeah, I think that there's a way to ethically use AI. Of course, I use AI. I beta tested AI, generative AI, and when we talk AI, there's different levels of AI. So there's a generative AI where you are generating, music, or you are generating, artwork and things like that.
Right.
I've used AI to generate. I beta tested the music creation ones. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them are pretty decent, pretty good. Not at the level as far as composing and like cinematic and epic trailer music. They're not quite there yet. But as far as the pop stuff and royalty-free libraries and some of the, I would say, the easier type of music to create for some of us, I think AI can knock that out the park. I've used AI for artwork, generate artwork for cover art. I've used AI definitely for the text, ChatGPT. I've used a couple of them, Perplexity. I've used Bard. I don't think they have Bard anymore. Gemini is Google's new Bard now. So I've used a couple of platforms. Midjourney I used for a while. I don't use that anymore, but there's so much out there in AI, and AI is also being integrated into platforms we already use. So there's AI elements in Logic. There's there's AI in our phones and devices. I use Canva also. There's AI built into Canva. So there's it's inevitable that AI is going to be implemented into the software and things that we use on a daily basis. So it's going to be like second nature.
Do you think that it's going to replace jobs, or do you see it in a different light?
I think it's going to replace some jobs. Like if I used to hire like artists from like Fiverr or things like that to do artwork for my albums, and since the AI came out, I use AI for artwork. So I think there's going to be some jobs where it could be detrimental. I read a case a couple of days ago where in Europe, theater refused to play a movie because the whole movie was made with AI. So I think that was a good call on theater. Of course, we know I have a friend, Jesse, in the music space from Sync My Music, who's he actually posted a great video today, sort of putting on blast Suno and Udio on how they are referencing copyrighted music, even though they haven't specifically said that they're referencing copyrighted music. But the video he posted today was really, I would say, the evidence is there, showing that these platforms are referencing or analyzing copyrighted music, and they're not paying for using that as a base material for their AI generations.
So Luke has said AI is a long way to go, but is making significant impact in many areas already. But yeah, from what I've seen, AI, it's really progressing rapidly. And what I've been really impressed with AI is, like, say, for example, someone made a Tupac song, it actually gets the vocal inflections correct. It sounds like a real Tupac song. It doesn't sound robotic.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, for that, it's kind of because it's hard when there is an artist who's no longer here with us, because we don't know what their true wishes would have been. I mean, we can ask artists now, like, hey, can we use AI if something, if you pass away, when you die, can we use AI to replicate your voice and create more materials with your voice and with your likeness? I know we wouldn't know the original artists if they're no longer here, what their wishes are, even though, they might have their estate and their family. But I think we should owe that to the artists that are still here, to ask them, and then do it ethically, still make sure that there's fair compensation somehow. We've seen there was an episode of Black Mirror in the last season, where they really, I forgot what it was called, but they sort of touched on, AI and replacing yourself and having your likeness and image, being used in media and entertainment.
Yeah, we did an episode on AI maybe a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how ChatGPT was trying to take the likeness of Scarlett Johansson. And, they basically hired someone because they asked her to do it because she did that movie, Her, with Joaquin Phoenix. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I heard of this case.
Okay. Yeah. It's like her character in the movie, it's like a very advanced version of Siri, like an AI chatbot that's very advanced. And so ChatGPT, they reached out to her to see if she'd want to do it. She said no. And then they reached out to her again right before they're about to release their most recent version. And she said no again. So then they went and hired someone that sounds like her to record the vocals for the chatbot. But I think, she's looking at that like they're stealing my likeness. What do you think about that?
I know it's hard when you have a celebrity. Now, I don't know who the vocalist was they hired, if the vocalist always sounds like that, but it is a clear case there where they asked her, they wanted her, likeness, and she said no, so they found something close enough. It's a tough spot. It's again,
it's like they found their worker.
Yep. Yeah, they found
to get their Scarlet.
Found the loophole, but I think that's what we're going to see a lot of, is loopholes, a lot of things held up with legality. The lawyers will always win, but it's going to be. Luke says, check out the Artifice Girl movie. Yeah. So it's a tough one, and it's going to take years for some type of formal law to be implemented and put in place. But something. I know something needs to happen there.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of gray area in regards to training the AI on someone's music and then making, a duplicate, using the AI to make a duplicate of the music, something in a similar style. Do you fear like any of your music being done like that? Somebody kind of training AI on your music and making something similar?
Not if it's me. So I read recently of a CEO who trained an AI to act as him, in the event something happened to him. And when they asked him why did he do that, he was like, because if I don't do it, somebody else will. So if it's me, putting in my music into some AI platform and creating a clone of, my production self or a clone of my voice. And I've seen people do this. They've created their own AI chatbot, so you can chat them. And then it's like them responding. So I wouldn't want someone else to do it. I don't think I'm at a level where someone else would want to clone me or anything, but if it's me doing it and I can, somehow figure out a way to make sure that it's representing me the best way and even be compensated. If it's me doing it, then great. Or someone like in my family or someone that I say, hey, here's my wishes as far as the virtual version of me, in my life, then that's fine. But not someone who doesn't know me and just assuming that taking whatever that I posted everywhere in the world and putting it to this thing, and now they have their Fingaz AI bot. No.
Right.
So where do you see the future of music composition going, especially with AI entering into the picture? Like, somebody getting into the field, what do they need to be aware of to make sure they're relevant in the future?
Yeah, and I see Luke in the chat. I was talking to Luke about this a couple days ago on actually on my podcast, and he was sharing some of his thoughts. I think that there's going to be an emphasis on human generated music. So
Yeah.
hopefully there'll be not only an emphasis, but hopefully there'll be a premium like price on that. So as opposed to, hey, you plop this in AI, and hopefully there'll be ways to track, either watermark or somehow track that a music piece of music was created with AI or has AI elements in it. But I think the emphasis will be on human generated music and still the music that I'm focusing on, cinematic and trailer music and epic music.
Right.
And then also working with people. Whereas, I did a project earlier this year where I was in the studio, a client in LA with a client in LA. We were making custom music on the spot. AI can't do that, that experience. So I think that human element was going to be, it's going to be hard to replace the human element of things for those who put value in that.
Sure. Now, you also worked for MTV at one point.
Not worked for, just having sync placements. So with sync, for
Oh,
those who
okay.
don't know, it's getting music into libraries, and then those libraries pitching your music to different projects and TV shows. Sometimes I do work directly with a client to compose custom music for them, depending on how that project comes about.
Right.
So I know you started like a freelancing business. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how did you go about getting clients, and what is your vision for your freelancing company?
Yeah, it's basically stemming from a lot of just outreach, putting stuff out there, making posts on social media, and people reaching out. For example, the Disneyland project was from me putting out a neoclassical trailer album, and sending it to different communities I'm part of. And in one of these communities was people who were working on this Disneyland attraction for Disney theme parks, and they needed some music for it. So that was just from me releasing this album on social media and different platforms and streaming platforms. I got a message in the DMs last August from a film producer who was working on the third sort of chapter of his film, because he saw me posting about music I was composing, and he was like, "Hey, I need a composer for the third version of this film, or the third iteration of this film franchise." And I composed the music for that. Yeah, it's just really putting stuff out there to different communities and groups, keeping them updated. Like, hey, here's the latest and greatest. If you need music, let me know. And just, it's almost like attracting the clients as opposed to reaching out directly to them. And then the one I was mentioning, who I did the custom music for in LA, they just happened to be in the room at NAMM in one of my panels, and I reached out to them after, and we started that relationship. So I think that's
so you've been doing your share of networking for sure.
Yep, definitely. And that's what I was going to say. In person, you just another thing AI can't beat is just being in person, talking to people, sharing those experiences of life or connections. I was talking to a potential future client, past/future client, a couple weeks ago, or actually last week. And before the meeting, I was telling them, my wife, I have a wife and kids. Our daughter just graduated from high school, and I was telling them our daughter's going to Spelman. And one of the people in the meeting, she was like, she just started going crazy. She was like, "That's the school I went to." And then I was telling my wife, and my wife told me the dorm our daughter's going to be staying at. And then I told the lady in this meeting, and she's like, "That's the dorm I stayed at." So you just never know the touch point when you're trying to handle business, or what can connect you with these different people.
Absolutely. In-person networking was something Brian and I talked about. Like you mentioned, AI, it can't really make a connection with somebody on a personal level. I do feel like digital marketing, digital networking can be effective, but it's getting a little oversaturated. Everybody's doing it. So kind of to give yourself an edge is better to also include a lot more in-person networking.
Yeah, I think in person, and if you can't, because a lot of in the music side, a lot of it is in LA. So if you can't
Yeah.
make it in person, there's some that offer virtual tickets and passes. There are some virtual events. Um, but definitely networking. But I do think you have to either get out in person, or if you're in an area where you can't get out too much, start something in your area. Do a weekly meetup if it's just, or a monthly meetup, or bi-monthly. If it's just you and one other person, that's one other person who you didn't know, that you can connect with and work on either music with, or projects, or business, and then who knows what that could lead to.
Absolutely. Now, what has your Instagram marketing plan looked like?
So that's interesting because I have like zero plan. I just post, which I need to get a little better with.
That's good though. You're
plan.
staying consistent with your posts.
Consistent as far as I do try to post something every day, but it's not always the same time. It's not always the same format. So I probably could get better with that. But I do post something every day. So it could be music I'm working on. It could be a review of a library. It could be, a snippet from a panel at NAM or an event. It can be a quote, but I am starting to, going back to the AI chat, try to use. I watched a video on YouTube today about a guy who used AI and ChatGPT to sort of do his social media plan and marketing plan, and he used it to help him, get his business up. So I was looking into that. I might try to do some of that this summer, but of course, music always trumps that. So if I get a quote or a brief to work on, a movie trailer, or to work on, a sync thing, whatever else I'm doing, if it's social media marketing or outreach, I'm probably going to stop that to work on the music, because for me, music is where the passion is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, as a musician, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So do you have a strategy that you use when determining who to connect with, who to reach out to?
I do now, mostly because of the clients I've been working with recently, which would be ones that you wouldn't think of, but these are more corporations. So I've been focusing less on reaching out to artists and more on reaching out to clients and that side of things. So I would say, starting out, my goal was to like work with Beyonce or Jay-Z or Rihanna, whoever. And that shifted when getting into sync, and it's like, oh, okay, I can work with film directors and compose music for their projects, or I can work with I have music at museum exhibits around the world. It's like I can work on music for museums. I can have music at theme parks. There's so many different avenues other than having music on an album by an artist, or getting music with an artist and hoping that it makes a cut to even get on the album, and then hoping that it's a single on the album. There's a lot of hope there, as opposed to getting music in a TV show, which is it's still some work, but it's a little easier than to get a track on Beyonce's next album.
On Beyonce's album, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you've kind of mentioned that you're involved in the church scene. What role has faith played in your life, and has that caused you to turn down any opportunities?
Not turned down, but I'll share two quick anecdotes. When I was I think I was at one of these events this year. I don't know if it was Sync Spotlight, where Luke, who's in the comments, he was an incredible panelist there. Luke is also an incredible composer. For those looking for a composer, he's worked on projects, like Star Wars and Consequences and Blood Brothers. So his resume is insane.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But I was at an event, it might've been that event this year, and there was an artist, there was a artist, a faith-based artist. And I was telling them, just really think about how they want to, if they want to get into sync, like specifically how they want to get into sync as a Christian-based artist. Because for me, I do have, Christian religious morals, but I'm not also in the place to turn down. One, I don't want to tell libraries no, or sync agents or music supervisors no. So if I have an opportunity to compose music for like a Budweiser campaign, or a something like that, like an alcohol campaign, something that's not obviously religious or faith ideals, I would still probably consider doing that project. And I even made a post when I stopped going to church. I made a post like, hey, I might be working on projects that might be like doing music for horror films or things like that. So for me, I think my music has a a broader reach than the church, and that really was revealed to me earlier this year when I did that custom music for the client, which is Fortune, I would say top 50 beverage brand, probably top 10 beverage brand that I was doing custom music for, along with the team that I brought in on the project. And before the session started, one of the executives who I connected with was like, "Hey, Marcus, would you open us up in prayer before we start the session?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem. I have no shame in that." So opened up, those sessions with prayer, and it was great. So you just never know where your faith will lead to, what doors it will open, and the doors that it doesn't open, or the people who don't want to work with me because of that, are not the people I want to work with. So and I'm not pushing, religion on anyone. It's just the way I walk and approach things is from that standpoint.
Sure, that makes sense.
Absolutely. I know there could be like really tight deadlines sometimes when working with like a corporate client. And composing is a really creative field. So what do you do when you have a tight deadline and you're not feeling particularly creative? Like, how do you get the juices going to make sure you're able to meet that deadline?
I'm usually rarely not creative. I can't remember where I've had like writer's block. The thing about sync licensing and working with clients, they usually have a direction they want to go. So they usually have some guidelines. I've seen some what's called briefs, things where a brief is what a client, a music supervisor, a sync library, sync agent will give to a music creator and say, it can be as detailed as, "Hey, we want a song that's very similar to this at this key and this tempo," or it can be, "Hey, we want a love song that we can try to see if it'll fit in this scene." So it can be really vague, or very, very specific. I worked on a brief today that was a replacement for a song, so it was pretty much, I knew the key, the tempo they wanted, the vibe they wanted. So it's pretty much just make my version of that without infringing on the copyright.
Sure.
So with those deadlines, even with the custom client that we were working on projects with, some of those, they were giving us briefs every half an hour to an hour. And I discussed with Luke earlier this week, there are ways as music creators that we can speed up our workflow using templates, track templates, or session templates, so that I can just click on my hip hop session template and it'll open up with all the plugins and stuff I need, and I can get creating really fast. I have a template for pop music. I have a template for synth music. I have a template for orchestral stuff. I have a template for trailer music. And if I have more time,
you're always thinking ahead. Sounds like you're always thinking ahead.
Always thinking ahead, but at the same time, I also I used to put a lot of emphasis on those sort of last minute deadlines. I don't do it as much now because there's more opportunity. I can take my time with making tracks, and I still make tracks fast, but it's not like I need to hurry up and do this in an hour and then try to find a writer to write a song to it and record on it within an hour so that we can submit it to this opportunity. Usually,
it's crazy.
I was chasing briefs for several months, and then I sort of stopped because it was like, hey, I just need to make something that's like this so that the next time it comes around, I have something ready.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So the impression I'm getting is that, like working with these kind of clients, it's not necessarily about creative, always trying to create something new. It's more of like a industrial type of music, meaning, you just got to create something that fits the purpose, even if it's not like the most creative thing ever.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be new. It's just different. Like, how can you approach making things different? And like I said, I'm in Virginia, so learning and studying, Timbaland and Pharrell and Bink and Knots and these great artists and Teddy Riley, and then Go-Go and DC, Funk and Funkadelic Parliament and Chris Brown, Missy Elliott, Trey Songz, and you start learning from all these people and their creative, energy and how fast they create, and just adapting, that to how I create and figuring out my way, to the point that some libraries are like, man, you work fast, and that has its pros and cons, but more pros than cons.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on like Timbaland?
I mean, Timbaland is one of my producer like idols. Timbaland, he had a protege named Danger. I actually had a chat with Danger a few months ago. Danger Hands, who's an incredible producer. Timbaland reviewed some of my beats over the pandemic. I reposted a video recently of him listening to one of my beats. When he started his Twitch channel, I was one of the early, the first 20 people in his channel.
Oh wow!
So back then it was earlier. It was easy to get him to hear your stuff as opposed to now.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, Timbaland, his beats are insane. His approach to music, the way he arranges sounds.
His stuff with Aaliyah. Remember his stuff with Aaliyah?
Yeah. I mean, that's timeless. That can't be replaced. And Pharrell, of course, Neptunes.
Neptunes.
And yeah. It's just the Virginia sound is different. So I'm hoping to somehow leave my mark on that side of things as a producer from Virginia. In the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, what would you say your favorite project that you've worked on in the past 5 years was?
Definitely Disney, because of like I said, I work fast. So I had a meeting with them, and I've shared this story before, but I had a meeting with them on a Friday. This was probably October-ish or September, October-ish of 2022. Had a meeting with them. They're telling me about the project, and they're like, "Hey, are you on board?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll work on some ideas for you." And they sent me a rough cut of the video. I was doing music to an intro video to an attraction called "Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln," which is at Disneyland. And so they were updating that.
Is that like a ride or something?
It's an animatronic show. So
wow.
You're in a theater. Actually, there's a lot of history there. It's one of the first, I think it might be the first animatronic show. It's one of the first, or probably the first that has, that represents people as opposed to animals and things like that. The show itself is 50, 60 years old. So there's a lot of longevity and history there. So they were updating the intro video to this attraction to include the story of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And they needed music for this 15-minute intro video to that attraction. And right place, right time. I sent, the album I worked on, I sent that to the one of the lists I'm part of, and these people were in that list. And so I had the meeting with them, and then they were like, they're going to do a screening on Monday. They said, we know you won't have the music done by Monday, but as long as you could have it done by Thanksgiving break. So they would give me a couple weeks, maybe up a month or so.
A couple weeks, that's a good amount of time.
Yeah. So after that meeting, I told my wife, I was like, I'm not going to sleep this weekend. I'm going to finish this project this weekend. And I ended up doing, I did all the music that weekend and sent it to them Sunday night. Then Monday morning, they messaged me. They're like, what is this? I was like, this is the music, version 1 of the music for this film you're working on, this intro. And they're like, no, this is great. And after that, it was just really minor tweaks here and there. But because I did so much effort up front, it was a hit or miss. It was a gamble. They could have been like, no, this isn't it. We're not going to work with you ever again. But luckily, it all worked out. And now I'm listed as a Disney vendor. And what was great about that was that when I went to NAMM last year, had my wife and kids, and I was telling my wife, we got to go see this attraction. And so I posted on my Instagram also, and on social media, us walking to the park and then going into the attraction. My wife telling everyone in that room at the time was like, oh, my husband did the music. And to be able to experience that with my wife and kids, that is something that at least I will never forget. And plus, I never thought of having music on a theme park attraction. That was never on my radar personally.
Yeah, that's pretty big, man.
Yeah.
So Luke made an interesting point. It's essential to focus on the styles and genres you do at an extremely high level. How important do you find specialization, and how do you choose what to really focus on and what to cut out?
Because there's so many things you could focus on. Yeah.
It is, and that's there's so many things I do focus on, and I need to definitely scale back. But playing in church, it was a Black Baptist church in Virginia. We'd be playing 5 or 6 different genres every Sunday. You might do one, and we're doing 10, 15 songs every Sunday, and these are not just hymn, do re mi type songs. These are You're talking, if anyone knows gospel artists, we're talking like Ty Tribbett, James Hall, Richard Smallwood, Kirk Franklin, just like some songs you might be able to pick up, within an hour, but there's some songs you got to sit down and like study and, chart out some things and figure out some chords, especially those James Hall songs. But playing those different styles of music, I was used to, playing different styles at church like every Sunday, and it was like really code switching because each song would be different, and then there would be segments where people in the congregation could get up and sing songs, and you never know what they are going to sing, so we're just making it up on the spot, sort of like almost improv. So having that background, it's made it easier for me to try different genres. 2 years ago, I wasn't really doing trailer music, so I tried it, and it turns out that I can do it at a high level. I'm not at the extremely high level yet, but I would say I'm at a high level right now. Because there are people at that like extremely high level, but studying things like that, studying trailer music has made it actually.
Well, you got like someone like John Williams.
Yeah, who actually doesn't do trailer, and Hans Zimmer has been quoted as saying, trailer music is one of the hardest, genres of music to make. He doesn't do trailers. So John Williams and Hans Zimmer, they're more focused on composing for films, which is totally separate from trailer music. Trailer music is like is like the highest level of like music, because you're doing like a movie score in 2.5 minutes. And you have these different elements of that specifically. So studying trailer music has made it easier for me to create other genres of music like hip hop, pop, R&B, which I was already creating that, but I've been able to even speed up my workflow on those other genres because of studying trailer music and specifically trailerizations, which has been an interesting journey on that side.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate. You're talking about in church playing all these different styles of music at once. Like there was a session musician. I'm a session musician, but there was this guitarist who once told me, hey, like you want to be a session musician, you got to be able to play anything. So the best thing to do to prep for that is to play a little bit of various genres every single time you practice.
Yeah. And I would say I wouldn't say I don't practice now, but my practice is actually making the music for the briefs and for the clients. Because each time I'm making something, either I'm learning something, I'm getting new plug, or when I'm doing video reviews, I did a couple reviews today. I need to do some more before I go to sleep. But doing those reviews, it's like, I'm learning something as I'm doing this review, a production process, or even just finding new sounds like that. That inspires me. So when you go back to inspiration, because I'm doing so much different things, even if I do somehow feel like I get stuck on one thing, it's like, okay, let me just stop that, take a break from that, but then I can jump over to this other thing, because I always have projects lined up. I always have music to make. Always have a plugin I need to review. So there's always something musically I can be doing to shift my focus from one thing to the other thing. It's just making sure that I finish everything that I start.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that resonates with me for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, so Brian here, he's trying to break into the video game music scene. He has a few albums made. So if you were in his position, someone who's trying to break into the industry, you have about 3 or 4 albums, what approach would you take to get into the industry or get your work in the game?
I have a friend in the game industry that I would say go to he actually posted a YouTube video a couple of years ago, basically outlining how you can get into the video game industry. He told you if you have albums already made, where to put those albums up. I forgot the platforms he mentioned, but his name is Stephen Malin. I also think a lot of these people are in Georgia. So like our daughter's in Georgia. Stephen Malin, though, I connected with him just over the pandemic, just looking up videos on how you make money from music. And he's a big composer in the video game space. And he posted a video.
What games has he done?
I wouldn't know offhand. But yeah, definitely check out his YouTube page. And he has a video that he posted where he shared ways you can make, how you can get into the video game industry. That's one I would say definitely check out that YouTube video. And if you remind me, Luke says, "Oh wow, that's crazy, small world." Luke goes to the same church as Stephen. And again, Stephen, going back to the faith thing, like a lot of people that who, if it's God or whatever you believe in, a lot of people that are getting put in my path are, have religious background or their faith, so Stephen has a community called the Video Game Alliance, but he has a video on YouTube where he shares how you can get your music into video games. That's one thing. The other thing is, I would say, find out where these video game conferences are. I think DICE is a big one. It's also expensive, but a lot of people, they go to these conferences and you're meeting game developers. It's like, hey, you're working on this game. I would love to work on music for your game.
Isn't there one called PAX East?
Maybe I'm not too versed in the video game stuff. Luke says GDC. Yep, Game Developers Conference is another one. But again, you have to, depending on where you live, you have to get on a plane, get the hotel for the week, get out there in person, and think of it as an investment. If you're spending $3,000 to get to this place, try to find a deal where you're making at least $6,000, to compose music, and then that way it
makes it all worth it. Then it makes it all worth it.
You're getting a 2x return on your investment. So
right.
But yeah, I think a lot of those you have to go out there in person and shake hands and kiss babies, as they say.
Yeah, no, I get that. I hear you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all of the questions I had off the top of my head. Did you have any additional questions, Brian?
I guess so you've worked for a lot of different companies. What has been your most influential company that you worked with, or like most inspiring?
Other than Disney, I would say the most surprising, there's a library I work with where it seems when we do get placements, they happen seemingly overnight. Some of the placements are like 2 weeks after I've made the track or 3 weeks after I've made the track. So I think those are, and the most recent one was with this company was the trailer for the Survivor season 46 finale, the promo trailer. And the library owner reached out to me, was like, hey, I think this is your track. And I listened to it and I was like, it sounds like it. And then I went back to listen to my track. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely my track. And then he was like, let me confirm. And then a couple hours later, he's like, yeah, this is your track. We got another one. Congratulations. So
wow.
It can happen overnight in the sync space, but then I have tracks that have been in libraries, it seems like forever. So you can make a song today, it gets placed tomorrow. You can make a song today and it sits in a library for 2 or 3 years, and then it gets placed, or you can make a song today and it never sees the light of day. So there's that risk.
Interesting.
For me, I think the most eye-opening has been the panels, where I've been able to, like I said, going in person, I've been able to connect directly with music creators, with music supervisors, with sync libraries and sync agents, so that there's sort of that, when I reach out to them, that sort of history is like, oh yeah, I got to answer his call. Or when they call me, it's like, oh, I got to answer their call. They came out on this panel on the stage at this event. They shared some gems. So I think that really helps to build those relationships.
That's definitely some powerful networking you're talking about.
Yeah, in person. And the great thing about those events, what happens during
in
the panels?
Person, in person.
In person. What happens at those panels is great, but the real value is what happens after. So even for Sync Spotlight, which was an event I was the manager for in Atlanta back in March. The Sync Spotlight the day before was a networking event. I brought out, the Atlanta Grammy Recording Academy president. He came out. I've known him for about 10 years. Brought out a big singer-songwriter who I've only known for a month. She's written for like Beyonce and Rihanna. She came out, to network. And then after the event, which was the following day, so a couple of the people that were part of the event went to like a happy hour and, went to like a bar. And I was like, I'll go out. And one of the music supervisors were there, and she was just telling us, her story and her history, how she made over, $1 million in 1 year in placements, which is like, to me, that's like, how is that possible? And
how is that possible?
But for me, just knowing that it's possible, it's like, okay, there's levels here,
for sure. Different levels.
Going to those events and meeting up with people is like, hey, if you are in town for a couple of days, maybe we can go grab a drink or go grab lunch or, just walk and have a chat. So that's where the real value is trying to get to that one-on-one conversation with people and making that direct connection, connecting with people directly, getting their email or things like that.
Which is very different from online networking.
It is like, pandemic aside, being in the same room and breathing the same air as someone, again, AI can't do that. But there's a different level. It's almost like we are music creators, but if you hear the difference between and people like Luke and I, we have some of the most expensive plugins out there in the market for strings and stuff. Even with a $1,000 string library, which sounds great, it sounds close to humans. When you're in the room with the orchestra, there's nothing like it.
Nothing like it. Well, like John Williams.
Yeah, or if you play an actual piano as opposed to a virtual piano, like if you go to something like NAMM, you have access to these instruments, warehouses and warehouses full of instruments that, as far as the eye can see. There's nothing like an actual player doing it. It is similar to you recording like your voice on a track, or as opposed to like bringing in a sample voice library and then playing the notes and try to type in the words and stuff. There's difference.
Yeah.
The human
definitely
element.
like something like jazz, like AI. I don't think AI could really touch jazz. Jazz is all feel.
I mean, there's still some great jazz plugins out there, but again, there's only so far it can go. And with, as the human, what we can do is we can take these virtual resources we have and add the human element to them. So maybe we're not quantizing it, which means like really aligning it to the grid. Maybe we're having, there's a point.
Beat correcting. Yeah.
There's options in a lot of these DAWs and plugins that there's a button that says humanize. Like it's almost it's almost hilarious now that I think about it. It's like, okay, I'm using the robots. I am the human. I'm the human element. So why do I have to humanize the thing that the human created already? But yeah,
that's funny.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Did you have anything else, Brian?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground, and especially a lot about like in-person networking. I think the key point here is that you got to get out there and meet people and shake hands to really get stuff moving for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll share a couple of conferences I know coming up. I know there's one, I think at the end of this month. I don't know. Oh, this is live, so I don't have to worry about this being posted after the fact. But there's one, I think, in Atlanta. It's called Mix Nick, where you can meet up with different mix engineers. Like Jay-Z's engineer, I think, will be there. Pharrell's engineer, I think, will be there. That will be somewhere in Georgia. And then I actually am doing a virtual one August 3rd, which is a month from the time of this recording. A virtual one that is called Level Up Sync Conference. You can find that on Eventbrite, where we will have like music supervisors. There'll be different aspects of music you can learn about, wealth management. What do you do when you get a placement? What do you do with the money you get? I'll be doing a segment on sort of epic cinematic and trailer music for that conference. But yeah, there's a bunch. And then there's ones, I would say for, is it SyncCon? I think will be this fall. And then there is another one that I want to get to, the Production Music Conference, which is in LA. That's an in-person one that I would love to get to. I think that's in October or November. And then there's some other events. I was asked to do one here in Virginia later this fall. I was literally just asked yesterday to do something out in Canada this fall. So lining it up.
Oh, wow.
So,
now, are a lot of these conferences usually held in places like LA or Nashville?
I would say 90% of them are in LA or California. Yeah. There's some, depending on the market you're going to. And when we say conference, I'm not meaning like festival. These are not festivals like Coachella. These are conferences you're going to sit in on a workshop or panels and things. Some of them are more lower key, which I like, sort of the more like Sync Spotlight, where Luke was a panelist, where I think there's maybe 200, 300 registered. And it's that, in some ways, that's a little easier to connect with people like Luke and music supervisors and creators, because when you go to these conferences like NAMM or South by Southwest, you're going to a place that has 100,000 people, and you might not get that direct connection with the person you're trying to connect with. But if you go to something like Sync Spotlight or some of these smaller conferences where there's only a couple hundred people, you have a better chance of networking. A lot of times after the panels, there's time to go talk to the panelists, meet with them, have conversations. Even sometimes during these panels, there's ways where you can have a listening session. You can play your music. With Sync Spotlight, we had that segment where
Oh, wow.
attendees could purchase a VIP pass, and then they could have their music played in front of the music supervisors. And then as a bonus, as me being the host, I sent the music out to those music supervisors after that event, so they have access to it to consider putting in their shows or things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of great value in attending in person. And if you can't do it, you definitely do the virtual ones. And as Luke mentioned, there's another one tonight, Mixing Night with Ken Lewis, which is more showing about mixing processes from one of the biggest engineers in the world. And I connected with his team. I do a segment on his show. That's a YouTube channel, Mixing Night with Ken Lewis. They've been, I think this is the 4th year or 3rd year. They've been live. So yeah, so definitely check that out too.
Very cool. And so you mentioned music supervisors. What exactly is a music supervisor, if you could break that down for our listeners?
Yeah, a music supervisor is the person who oversees the music in a television show or film. They are the person that helps to determine what music will go into what scene. They also do, like, they can also work in video games and advertising, but mostly we refer to them in film and television. So they're the ones that are sort of bridging the gap between the composers, the songwriters, the musicians. They might also work with sync libraries and sync agents, but the music supervisor is the bridge between getting the music from music creators and getting it to the actual on the show or on the project, the video game. So the music supervisor is like the gatekeeper, and that's what I've been sort of making those more direct connections and starting to cut out sort of the middle person, the sync libraries and sync agents, if I can, to work directly with music. If you can get directly to a music supervisor, you have the best chance of getting your music to the project if it works for what they're looking for.
So you want to get basically in-person networking with these music supervisors.
If you can, that's the best way to connect with them. From my experience, for me, I have different things I can offer them when I reach out to them. Even if I'm reaching out to them virtually, I have different things that I can offer them just from my brand and things that I've been developing over the last few years. But if you can go to a conference in person and meet a music supervisor, that's a great way to do it. If you can do the virtual ones, even like I said, find the ones that have like smaller registrations, where it might be easier to cut through a couple hundred as opposed to a couple thousand. Virtual is fine too, but really the value is definitely the greater value is definitely in person if you can make it happen. And I know there's California, New York is also, they do a couple events up there. There's not a lot in the Midwest.
Yeah, I'm in New York.
Yeah, there's a lot in New York with I know Sync Summit does some things up there. AES is doing some things up there. I worked with them last year. So New York is not a bad spot. Nashville, I don't think there's a lot of conferences as far as sync is concerned.
Probably all country stuff, right?
Maybe, I'm not too sure.
But
there's film, like there's Nashville Film Fest, so there's a film element there. But Atlanta is another big spot now. There's a lot of things happening down there for sync and for film composing. Maybe because of Tyler Perry building his empire down there, but Atlanta's a really big hot spot. A lot of films and TV shows are recorded down there. And there's a lot of music creativity happening down there in the film and entertainment space, but also in just music in general, hip hop and pop.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of stuff coming out of Atlanta.
Yep. So I look forward to being down there more, as our daughter will be going to school down there over the next 4 years. So yeah.
That's awesome. But I think that's all the questions I have. Kevin, you want to add anything?
No, that's everything from me, man. We definitely appreciate you coming on the show, and feel free to come back anytime. Did you have any closing thoughts you wanted to leave with the audience?
Yeah, just definitely connect with me. Fingaz, DAFINGAZ, on social media. Check out my site, thefingaz.com. I have sample packs. I'm actually going to do a sale. I'm going to launch it tonight. 4th of July sale. I think I'm going to do 40% off. So I'm saying it now, so I guess it's already out there. I'll probably do 40% off at least the next day for 4th of July. For those in the US, have a safe holiday. That will be off of any sample packs. I have some sample packs there for music creators, including clap loops. I have sting endings. I have piano loops, organ loops. And then I also have courses on there showing how I create music. I have a neoclassical trailer course. Luke was there live for that. I have a epic percussion course, epic cinematic hip hop course. And I also have a networking course on there. So you can definitely check out those. Most of those are usually 2-3 hours. So when I say course, I use that term loosely. You can knock them out in half a day. And figure out ways to create your music, how I go about creating my music, and hopefully learn something. So Fingaz.com, DAFINGAZ.com. I'm going to get that code up. I'll probably just say put in the code July 4, the number 4, and you'll get 40% off whatever you see. I'll also offer, this will not be on discount, but I offer trailerization. So if you're an artist and you want to get your song trailerized, I offer adding, making your song more epic and cinematic. I also do audio editing. And some people have been asking me to do mixing. I haven't really offered mixing yet, but I'm thinking of adding that to the services I do offer. So stay tuned. If I do offer that, maybe I should work on that tonight also. Maybe I can launch that this week, mixing services. So
you're busy, man. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, and like I said, I have to narrow it down, but I keep saying, let me just add this thing, let me do more. So at some point I'm gonna have to scale back.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we really enjoyed talking to you tonight, Marcus, and yeah, we'd love to have you back on sometime.
Yeah. Let me know. Would love to return.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on the show, man, and thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.